How's it going, and welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. In this video we're going to be taking a look at this, the MD200 from Boss. This is a friend of mine, a bass player, using modulation pedals, controversial. My bass player in my band loaned it to me. He bought it for doing some different modulation effects on bass. And I thought, I've done the IR200 and the OD200, and both of which are like really regular, like stalwart parts of gear for me, sorry. And so I thought the opportunity I'd take this and never tried out. So before I do get into this, I want to say that I'm not the biggest fan actually of Boss modulation effects. I'm not mad on their phasers or their choruses. I find them to be very generally kind of, have always been sort of synthetic sounding as opposed to like electro-harmonics or MX, or the main, obviously the TR2, tremolo to TR2 and TR3 are great pedals, but I think tremolo is hard to get wrong. But their phaser, flanger and chorus pedals have always seemed a bit sort of 80s-ish to me. However, I use a lot of MIDI pedal boards, and so something like this where you have all those effects in one box that you can switch different presets and then activate it with a MIDI pedal is really, really useful. So the premise of this is very useful to me, and that's why I wanted to check it out. So just tell you a little bit about it. What this is it's a Boss 200 series pedal, right? Which means it's a multifunctional pedal. In this case, it's around modulation. So this has many, many different modulation effects, such as chorus, flanger, phaser, tremolo, univibe, rotary. And then it has some weird ones, like it has a vibrato, it has a overtone, it has a slicer, and then the rest of them are usual kind of modulation effects. And then it had some interesting features, like it has a tap tempo over here. So if you're using a tremolo, for example, you can tap in the pace of that tremolo to make sure it's on point. There is a within that tap there's a subdivision switch, so you can tap in quarter notes and get dotted eighths or triplets or whatever you want. There is really good connectivity at the back, stereo in, stereo out, and there is a control expression, so you can add a second foot switch or an expression pedal, and then there's MIDI in and out on the side as well as a USB. So as with all the 200 pedals, it's massively feature packed, which I really love about Boss's 200 series pedals. They really fit an inordinate amount of stuff. You can pick these up second hand for about 200 quid, and I don't know how much they are new. I'd say about 300. When I say quid, I mean euro, not Great British pounds. In Ireland, we're on the euro. Okay, then the controls. There's a typical like rate, depth, a level. Oh, rate and depth controls that are on most modulation effects, but then there's a level, which is basically a blend of the entire effect. Now that's interesting because, excuse me, on a lot of effects, the depth also serves as a level. So the depth of how deep, say, a tremolo is will serve as also how much tremolo do you want in your sound. But you can set a depth here, but then blend that depth in and out. And it's basically a blend control of the modulation effect with the dry control, which is hard to explain, but very, very useful. And each effect has these 3 parameter knobs that does something extra within that effect, which is quite useful. I just didn't have the time on this one occasion to go and research exactly what these do. It's evident in some of the presets, but not in the others. And then there's obviously an on-off switch to turn it on and off. The tap switch here, you can hold it down and it switches into switch between like a manual mode, which is the way the knobs are set, and then 4 preset memories, which is really, really useful. So how I would use this is I would set up a chorus, a tremolo, a rotary, and a phaser for my originals band. And then as I would put this onto my pedal board with my Boss ES8 loop switcher, and via MIDI, I would pull up whatever preset I wanted for a specific part in a specific song. And that's how I would use this. Whereas right now, for example, I'm using one pedal that does rotary, chorus and vibrato, and one pedal that does univibe. And it does univibe and tremolo. So I have 2 pedals that cover off basically 4 main effects. I would be using this to replace both of them, if I think it sounds good enough. So that's kind of the intro. Let's take a listen to it now and see what you think. Okay, so first of all, I'll just give you my setup that I'm playing. So I'm playing this Court 335 copy into the MD200 in stereo this time. One side going into the front of my Koch Studio Tone 20 head on the clean channel, and the other one going into the Overtone British Invasion Nano Legacy mini head on the other side, right? So bypass the 2 amp sound of this. I will tune before we go any further. But what I'm going to do here is I'll quickly run through what the different effects are. I don't have the manual in front of me to know what the 3 parameter knobs do. I think you can get as much control over these effects as I'd want with the rate knob and like level modes, or rate, depth, and level knobs, the 3 that are across the top here. I'm not really worried about these at this point in time. I have been using them to tweak some sounds. So I'm going to go through the different sounds and just demo them super quickly. As I said, that's not what this demo is really about. I want to focus on something else. And then what I'm going to do is, I've set up 4 presets of the 4 modulation effects that I use with my band. And I'm going to show those presets, and then what I'm going to do is get my pedal board out, put it in the, I have a spare effects loop on my pedal board, put it in that, and see how it handles the modulation ask on the different modulation like effects I need, and pulling them up via MIDI and stuff to see, is this actually a better solution than using 2 or 3 different pedals, okay? So, first of all, to show the different effects, I'm going to go to the manual memory here. I'm just going to tune. Okay, so starting off, I'll go to the vibrato because it's the one at the very bottom, right? So vibrato. Turn it on would help. You can make it faster. You can really fine tune, you know, the speed, because this knob is very sensitive, the speed knob. Make it less pronounced. And then you can dial back the blend of it. Okay, so that's the vibrato. Onto the tremolo, it's a tremolo. You can change it from tremolo into planner with this knob, which makes it go between the 2, left and right. This controls sort of the shape of the tremolo. And I don't know what this one does, but this is the depth. Put it back to tremolo. And the speed. It's a fine tremolo. You can also control the memory with the tap. Or slower. Okay, so that's planner. Then there is a rotary. Okay. So on rotary, this foot switch, this is cool actually. One tap switches it between slow and fast. I like that. And it ramps up, okay? So it's a rotary. I'm not sure what the extra controls here. Maybe between drum and horn or something. So that's controlling the slow and fast speeds. the tone of the rotary, that's handy. Speed. Always adds drive. Which I don't want. And then the blend. Okay, that's rotary. Moving on to autowah. I'll try and level the knobs here. It's not an envelope filter, right? So it's just a constant speed wah. Yeah, like if you only wanted to use wah at one point in your set and you didn't want to drag around a big, huge, heavy wah pedal, you could get away with that. Okay, that's the auto wah. Here's a slicer. Pretty cool. I'm not gonna get. I'm not gonna use a slicer, so I'm not gonna. What would you say? Linger on that. Overtone is like a weird pitch shifting kind of thing. Sounds pretty good, actually. Tracks really well. Sounds like the take me to the ball game thing done. Quite fun. So, what do the controls do on this? Blend. With a low blend, you get a more kind of chorusy effect, or depth, I should say. Blending in the lower harmony. Okay, so that's the overtone. It's like a harmonizer type thing, and then we have the kind of natural chord. Rate's way too high. Still too high. It is relatively easy to dial in the usable sound very quickly. sure what those controls are doing. But I like how that chorus is, with that depth knob, it can really change a lot of the character of it. Okay, so that's the regular chorus, and then you have the CE1 really old school chorus. I kind of get that. The old kind of 70s chorus. Nice old school chorus. It's a flanger. Very 80s kind of thing of it. Phaser. So there's two phasers. I use a phaser I've used a phaser in every band since I was like 16 for some parts. This feels like that green 90s Boss phaser. It's like kind of hi-fi sounding, space aging, very detailed. Like a really slow phaser. Yeah. Then you get into the vintage phaser, which I'm presuming is supposed to be like an MXR dubby. That's lovely. You can hear that movement between the two speakers, and it's glorious. Okay, and then there is the classic vibe. Nothing happening there at all. There we go. So you can turn on a fuzz with this, which is a nice touch. In terms of the vibe itself, nice. Okay, so there are all the sounds that are available on the unit. This is a long demo. It's always the case with these especially something like modulation. So what I'm going to do now is show you the 4 presets I set up. So the first one is like a mild chorus. Again, totally fine. Then I have a tremolo. I'll tell you the truth, when I was trying to set this up, I used tremolo that's synced to the tempo of a lot of songs that we do. It's very hard for me to work this tap division side of things to get it to where I want it. So that's the tremolo, and then I have the rotary. So I'm going to switch to the dirty channel now for a sec. Perfectly good rotary, and then the last one is my phaser. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do now in a second is I'm going to plug this all into my pedal board and I'm going to see how it works to replace, say, my 2 modulation pedals that I have on my pedal board at the moment. I'll be honest, it's very complicated to get basic modulation sounds out of it. And I love the 2 of the 200 series pedals that I have, the OD200 and the IR200. I think they're great. Not so much loving this one. I have an analog vibe pedal called the Electric Vibe by OP Effects on my board, and the vibe just doesn't get anywhere near that. It'll be interesting to see from a functionality point of view, which is a big part of what I like about Guitar Gear, is when the functionality is really good, how well the MIDI functionality and being able to select presets and it being in one small box, how much that convinces me. So I'm going to do that now, but right now I wouldn't be knocking down the door for this. Okay, so I've switched now to plugging the MD200 into my pedal board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the pedal board cam and I'll explain how everything happens. Normally I would inset it here, but I think there's too much going on, so I'm going to put a full screen. So here's pedal cam. Okay, so what you have here is MD200 here, and this is my pedal board. And for people that don't use loop switchers, how this works is this unit at the front is called the ES8, and what it is, it's 8 effects loops, and all these pedals are individually plugged into effects loops, right? This does my pitch shifting, overdrive and distortion, boost, compressor, muff sound. This does all my delays and reverbs, and then these two over here do all my modulation. Okay, so this one does vibrato, tremolo, and because I use 2 amps, when I put this in one side as vibrato, it does chorus, and then it also does rotary, faux rotary sounds using vibrato fast in one side, and then this one is just a univibe pedal, right? So these are all my modulation sounds. Also at the back here, you can see these 2 leads. That's the 2 outputs going to the 2 amps, and beside it here there's what's called a audition loop, which means there's one loop in this pedal board that's not used that I use to try out different pedals. So at the moment the MD200 is plugged into the audition loop, and then I also have a MIDI cable that's controlling it. You can see it kind of running across the top here. It's going out and into the pedal. Right, so what I've done is I've gone into patches where I use modulation effects, a few different ones, And how this is set up, by the way, is there's like 13 songs in my band set, and each song has a number of different parts. And in one of those changes where either one of these modulation pedals is brought in, this is doing it instead now. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So, I'm just going to go back up to bank 1 here. So, when I go to, there's a song called Modern Disease, and in the chorus it has a rotary pedal, so it sounds like this. So what's happening there is it's going out into the MD200, and MIDI is selecting preset 3, which is a rotary, right? So that's fine. And then when I go on to say a different part of the song, Lonely Lives, in the bridge there's a phaser, and the part goes like this. So what's happening there is when I hit this switch, it's telling via MIDI the MD200 to switch to preset 4, which is a phaser. Okay, so if I go up again to Home Away From Home. So on the third part of this song there's a tremolo. So there is actually a tremolo on there, but it's not retaining the depth. I'm just not hearing the tremolo. So in that one it simply hasn't worked. So when I go up to this next patch here, this patch called U, and when I hit this switch, it brings in the volume. You can hear the tremolo there. So on that one it's selected tremolo, and it is working. And then lastly, there's one song here. If I can find it, progress, and here it's a chorus. There is actually a chorus happening there. So you can see that the size of this pedal compared to the size of these two, it would save space to do what the same job that these can do is. However, I prefer the sound of these two. So then just to close, you can see the size of this pedal is like marginally smaller than the size of this too, so it can do the same thing. But I don't like the sound of this, and I don't like the functionality of it as much as I like these two pedals. It's a personal preference thing, but it does show that the MIDI capability of the MD200 does mean you can get all your modulation effects using a switcher or something like that, and it does the job pretty well. So there you go. So the MD200. Sometimes when I do a demo, I'm not inspired enough by the sound or the functionality of a pedal when it's not something I really need. I don't need this. I like the two pedals I have on my board to handle my modulation needs. They kind of have a bit more of a signature thing going on with this. Having said that, because I wasn't massively inspired by it, I didn't really dig deep enough into its capabilities. In the tone section of the audio demo, I felt nearly everything sounded a bit synthetic. But with these three knobs, I might have been able to counteract that a bit more. But I found it more complicated to use than I want to give to a modulation pedal, basically. If it was a delay pedal or a overdrive distortion fuzz side pedal, I would give that time to it. But it's very, very in-depth and hands-on. And it's got a really dazzling array of sounds, as all the rest of the 200 pedals do. And the functionality is brilliant. You could see with the Pedalboard part of the demo how it was really able to handle an awful lot of different tasks without being interacted with your hands at all via MIDI, which is really, really useful. I think that the memory and tap switches, like on the rest of the Boss pedals, is really clever the way it's used. And I think the sounds are good. Like, they are good. They're just a little bit like Boss's modulation sounds, which are very hi-fi and not necessarily for me from a taste point of view. They're kind of 80s-ish sounding to me. So there you go. If you're looking for a comprehensive modulation pedal and you want to use it with a switcher, so the one that has MIDI and that has presets that can handle all your modulation needs, and I would say if you're playing in like a pub band or maybe your band has like a 80s feel, but not like a Northern England 80s feel, more of a LA 80s kind of feel, a session kind of feel, this is a great choice. It's pretty complicated to get some basic modulation sounds out of, in my opinion. And I'm probably going to get abused for saying that in the comments. I do dig deep into pedals. I just wasn't motivated by my experience with this to dig as deep into it as I did with the OD100 or IR200. But I'm not a massive modulation guy, I will say that. So if you're looking for a good all-rounder and you have a leaning towards American 80s kind of modulation sounds, in my opinion, this is a good choice. I think it's reasonably priced, and like all the rest of the 200 series, in terms of functionality and sort of interactability, it leaves all the other competitors in the dust. Boss's functionality is better than anybody's. End of story. Like, their functionality, especially for their price point, is unbelievable. The fact that this has the external control and the expression pedal input, it's got stereo in and out, and it's got MIDI in and out, and then there's all the separate stuff you can do in like the global menu to make the pedal do what you want. It's brilliant. So there you go. The MD200 from Boss. If you've watched this far, this was a long video, so I really say thanks. And if you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, because it helps the channel a huge amount. I'm running a channel membership thing now. You can check that out in my description. If you're interested, you want to become a member of the channel, let me know, or sign up, I guess. And yeah, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in another video again soon. Cheers. Bye bye.